Chris here from Inside the Recording Studio podcast. In this video, we're going to take a look at the Pultec EQ. We're going to take a look at the controls, how to work it, and we're also going to listen to how we can use it to really beef up a kick drum. Let's go and dive in. Here we are in Logic, where I have a little drum loop. We have a kick track, we have a snare, and a pair of stereo overheads. But before we listen to that, let's go over the Pultec interface. I am using the Pultec from Waves. And the first thing that I thought of when I'm looking at the interface of the Pultec is that it's a little bit unusual. So let's go over what everything actually does here. It can be very advantageous to look at this as being like three separate triangles. Now that can sound even more confusing, but bear with me here. The first triangle I'm looking at is this part right here. We have a boost knob, we have an attenuation knob, and we have a frequency selector down here, CPS, cycles per second. So we have a shelf at 20, 30, 60, or 100 cycles that we can boost or cut as an attenuate. The next part is this little section right here. We have the high shelf boost only. Don't get fooled by this attenuation knob right here. That's a separate part, but we have the boost knob. We have the frequency setting here, 3K, 4K, 5, 8, 10, 12, and 16. And we also have a bandwidth to control the slope of this boost that we're doing. The last part is this section right here. Now don't worry about this. This is just for the wave simulation that includes the 60 or the 50 cycle hum. I have this turned off in this case. But we have a high cut essentially here. We have the attenuation that we can set at either 5K, 10K, or 20K. There's also the overall gain right here. So now that we're a little bit familiar with the interface, let's take a listen to this drum track that I have. So there we go, pretty straightforward. Now, if you listen to the podcast where we talked about the Pultec, you heard us mentioning that both Jody and I consider this a sweetening type of EQ. It's not necessarily something that either one of us would use for correcting. So in full disclosure here, on this kick track, let's solo that first. One thing I frequently do is I like to cut out a little bit of 500 that I don't find very pleasing. So in that case, I am just using here the Logic stock EQ, and I'm cutting out quite a hefty, like 5 dB out of the 500 range. So let's listen to that first. So to me, that takes care of a little bit of that boxiness. But this video is about the Pultec, so let's get going. The first thing we're going to do is I'm actually going to be kind of aggressive here, just so it's easier for you to hear what's going on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to boost the low end of the kick. So I'll set it at 60 cycles right here, and I'm going to start boosting here. So take a listen. Getting pretty hefty. The next thing that we can do is this attenuation knob. One thing that's sort of unique to the Pultec is that you have both of these controls at the same frequency. Now, they're not identical in their slopes, so that can be a little confusing. If it were, and I just brought this up to the same value as the boost, it would essentially just nullify anything that we've done here. But that's not the case, as we'll hear if I hit play here again. we can hear that it's still obviously affecting that. And the reason for that is that these curves are a little bit different. So you can experiment with this. Don't be afraid to kind of try out different things. It's quite common actually to add some attenuation along with the boost here to get a little bit of the dip before the crossover section. It might be a little tricky to hear here, but let's give that a listen. Depending on the source material, you may get varying mileage out of that. But you can definitely use both of these together, so don't be afraid of experimenting there. The next thing I'd like to do with this kick is I'd like to bring out the clickiness a little bit more of the beater. That's usually living at around 4K in my experience. So now I'm going to go ahead and boost some here and to listen for that click to kind of come out from the beater. There we go. Now, you should never do this kind of stuff in solo mode, obviously, so let me take this off. We can hear the kit as a full performance. I'll go ahead and bypass the Pultec as well so you can hear what we've done. There you go. There's the Pultec EQ. Hopefully you learned something. Thanks for watching, and as always, have an awesome day.